Welcome, High Commissioner Bhatia. Today we are going to discuss about a very important visit by Indian Prime Minister to a very important neighbor in the Indian Ocean region, Mauritius, whose ties with India needs no introduction because of its deep-rooted history as well as its contemporary relevance. Could you just throw some light on the significance of this visit and what can we expect from this visit?
Thank you very much. Mauritius is a very important neighbor and a very friendly neighbor which has always extended utmost cooperation and consideration to India. And in a similar manner, India also regards its relationship with Mauritius as of great significance. I think this is best reflected by the fact that Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi is going to Mauritius now as the chief guest for the Independence Day celebrations. Now, this is the best slot that a country can give to a foreign leader, a friend. So, this will really, as the Prime Minister of Mauritius said while announcing the visit in the Parliament, that this is a testimony to the excellent relations which exist between India and Mauritius. So, the importance is obvious, it is a historic importance. I think importance is further increased by the fact that only last year President of India visited Mauritius. Then I think you asked the second question as to what we could expect. Now, I would not like to preempt what the leaders would talk and achieve, but it is very clear that the basic thrust would be to further deepen and enhance the relationship and cooperation. So I would not be surprised if through their high-level conversations, there is once again a new proximity in terms of views on global, regional and bilateral issues. And I would not be surprised if new projects of cooperation through which we can help the people of Mauritius are also announced. So in short, I can say that Mauritius is a very important neighbor. This is an important visit and we expect some very substantive results coming out from it.
You know, the location of Mauritius is very, very critical. It's in the middle of southern western Indian Ocean region. It's an anchor in many ways for India in that region and Western Indian Ocean, where India has been a first responder for several decades, so as to say. And Mauritius has remained a very state-first partner. The security ties are very critical to this relationship. And it is probably the only country in the world where an Indian serves as a national security advisor to the Prime Minister of a foreign nation, which is Mauritius. Succeeding officers from India had that role. How do you describe this security partnership in the current context of a geopolitical turmoil from which Indian Ocean is not safe or immune?
So I was looking at what the national motto of Mauritius is, and I found it says that Mauritius is the star and key of the Indian Ocean. So yes, you are absolutely right. Here is an island nation, a cluster of islands, which enjoys pivotal geostrategic position in the Indian Ocean. Now, in the Indian Ocean itself, if you look at the entire picture, in that ocean, India has a unique position. In fact, this is the only ocean which is named after a country, namely India. So, there is a very natural affinity in which India and Mauritius look at what you said, geopolitical trends and changes in this region. First of all, there is always the non-traditional security challenges, whether it is piracy, illegal activities, climate changes, oil spills and the rest of them, disaster resilience, etc. So there, India and Mauritius look at the entire dossier in a very, very similar manner. And then, of course, there are the traditional security challenges which emerge from the geopolitical competition. And here, I think we have to remember that India's presence and India's weight are counted. India has a broad view of what is going on in the region from Suez to the Strait of Malacca. The Indian Navy is visible wherever it is necessary to be visible, mainly to help as the first responder to many of our neighbors, including Mauritius. Whenever there is a need, they know that they can bank on India, and I think it is quite possible that the Honorable Prime Minister may once again renew those assurances, etc. But most importantly, I think we can also recall that when the Prime Minister went to Mauritius roughly about 10 years back in 2015, he consciously chose Mauritius to announce the government's vision of the Indian Ocean, which, as you know, is depicted by the famous acronym SAGAR, essentially security and growth for all in the region. That was the idea. And we, the scholars and experts and diplomats, have been discussing the implications of SAGAR vision for the past 10 years. Much has happened, and I'm sure that even this time the PM might talk about it and might even further elaborate that vision.
I know Mauritius has been gracious to offer India a naval outpost in Agilega Islands, which some other countries may have some reservations on that, but in that region, Mauritius has been very gracious to offer that to India, which not many countries would do. I mean, in terms of to a foreign power in that. So, how do you see the significance of that outpost for Indian Navy in terms of naval outreach in the current context of rising piracy and other threats from non-traditional players and including seaborne terrorists? How significant is something like that for India?
As you rightly said, this shows the friendliness and the desire for cooperation exhibited by Mauritius for India. It also undoubtedly facilitates India's ability to execute the vision of SAGAR. Whatever India does, it does in terms of totally in coordination and with the consent of Mauritius, whether it is non-traditional security or any related issues. I think there is no serious problem of any kind on that. Ever since this arrangement has been made, it has been yielding dividends. And what we can say is that, there is more and more goings on between the naval forces of Mauritius and the Indian Navy. I think there is a great deal of appreciation in the region about the professionalism and the effectiveness of the IN or the Indian Navy, both at the time of dealing with the piracy problem in 2008 onwards, and similarly whenever there are incidents which create concern, the Indian Navy is always there, and this in turn enhances the image and position of India. So we have reason to be happy that we have friendly neighbors in the region with whom we are working in a very constructive manner.
Ambassador, Mauritius has a deep cultural connect. It's not just the security connect, it's not just the Indian Ocean connect. It is a deep historical cultural connect with India, in which India takes a pride, Mauritius takes a pride. I mean, this history of Indian origin people who constitute 70% of the population may not have been very smooth to begin with when they went. And as I understand from our past conversations that they faced a tough time. But today they are among the successful Indians globally. So how do you see this in the modern context of a globalized world? How important is this link?
This link is very vital. Of course, India's relations with Mauritius are spread across the various demographies, but the fact remains that 70% of the population, which is total population is about 1.2 million people, 70% of that are of Indian origin. So with them as well as with others, India works closely. And yet the facts of history cannot be changed. I think when Prime Minister Modi goes there, once again, on the basis of historic memory of this great trip that Mahatma Gandhi had made to Mauritius back in 1901. And I can say that the way the Indian community there internalized the threefold advice by Mahatma Ji to them to encourage education for the children, political empowerment, and deep connection with India. All that has been followed by the community, and we in India, across the board, we are fully aware that Mauritius has its roots that go back to various parts of India, and they are inculcated, the cultural roots, the religious and spiritual roots. I remember my own visit when I went there to what is known to many others as Ganga Basin, is actually now known as Ganga Talab. So the importance of the Ganges, the importance of Ramayana and Mahabharata, the importance of Hindi and Bhojpuri, music, dances, kirtan, all this have really been strong anchors of cultural life of the people of the Indian origin. At the same time, I'm aware that our High Commission keeps in touch with all the other parts of the population as well, because it's important for us to keep everybody together. And it's wonderful to know, especially even for our people in India, that a country in one central part of the Indian Ocean, Western Indian Ocean, is so closely aligned with India.
Coming to my last question, In 2021, if I'm not wrong, India signed a economic pact with Mauritius. And Mauritius, as it described itself with its robust banking infrastructure, is a gateway to Africa. How can that help India, in your opinion, for an African outreach, particularly to Eastern and Southern Africa and across Africa, because Mauritius is an important member of the African Union, a respected member of the African Union? How can India take advantage of that pact through Mauritius?
Economic cooperation and partnership agreement, the first agreement that was signed by India with an African nation. We have to remember that Mauritius is an Indian Ocean country but also an African country. We will continue to explore possibilities of using it in many, many ways. It is quite possible that this will be further explored.
Mauritius is also an important investor in India. And how do you see that in the coming days? And how can this pact further expand that relationship, particularly the economic relationship?
We all have to appreciate and admire the economic advancement of Mauritius. It used to be a simple agricultural economy, but they rose from there through investment in education, skills, and diversification of economy to reach a stage where they became the middle income economy and they aimed to be the high income economy. How did they do it? They did this by elevating themselves to various economic activities like banking, tourism, IT services, and also blue economy. So I think the interlocutors on both sides would find there is plenty of new opportunities where we can explore together, and particularly with regard to Africa, because we have to remember that Mauritius geographically is seen as part of Africa. Mauritius remains one of the gateways for going into Africa and economic partnership with Africa.
Thank you, Ambassador. It was lovely speaking to you.
Thank you very much.